You're listening to The Dead Prussian, a podcast about war and warfare, hosted by Mick Cook, brought to you by Hollow Street Media.
G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the preview for the 2024 season of the Dead Prussian podcast. I'm your host Mick, and I'm providing this out there for our loyal listeners so you've got an idea of what's coming in 2024. So we're planning our season at the moment. We may do a 12 to 15 episode season. We may also exceed that. We're having some good response from guests at the moment, but we're looking to just confirm how much time we have available in our recording schedule, as we also have other shows we need to produce. But you are one of our priorities because you've been our longest listener base, and we wouldn't be where we are without you. So we've just wrapped up the pre-recording for some of our episodes for a few of the podcasts we have in Hollow Street Media at the moment. The Dead Prussian podcast, On Rome podcasts, Battles podcast, and Enemies of Rome podcast. Now, I'm going to give you a list of what's coming to all of these shows in 2024. Some of you who are premium subscribers may already be familiar with the episodes for Battles. You will, as a premium subscriber, always get them well ahead of anyone else, but we'll also be making these shows premium access, and then later we'll be making them open access. So you'll get them much later if you are open access, but you'll get them earlier if you are premium access, both on their channel and also the Dead Prussian channel. The same will happen with Enemies of Rome and the On Rome podcast. If you are a premium subscriber for On Rome, you will get the Enemies of Rome episodes well ahead of time that the free Enemies of Rome channel pushes them out. But I'll give you a list now of all of our topics coming up. Now, these are the ones that we have pre-planned, pre-recorded. There's one or two in there that are scheduled to be recorded but haven't quite been recorded yet for our 2024 seasons, and then we will also be building upon these. So these are not the only topics you'll be hearing from us, but these are the ones to get you interested in listening to us. So coming to the Dead Prussian in 2024, we are discussing land command in the 21st century, and it is not a rosy picture. We will also be talking about operational air warfare. We'll be discussing a theory of irregular warfare. We'll also be discussing strategic narratives and warfare. In fact, I've just finished recording that episode with an amazing guest. And we'll also be discussing mission injury, which was a concept relatively new to me, and I find it fascinating, and that is to be recorded in early January 2024. Coming to the On Rome podcast, we'll be talking about Varrus and the Battle of the Teutoberg, the disaster there, and getting an expert opinion on the event, and more importantly, on the profile of Varrus and his life, leading up to his command of the legions at that disastrous battle for Rome. We'll be discussing Cleopatra's daughter, the one who survived, who not only was an Egyptian princess, she was a Roman prisoner, and finally an African queen. So that is definitely a topic you want to tune in for. And we have been discussing this week with one of our guests, AD 69, or the 68-69 long year, the year of 4 emperors. Absolutely brutal period of time at the top of politics for the Roman Empire, after the downfall of Nero triggered a series of brutal coups. Now, coming to battles, and most of these are already available on the Dead Prussian Premium. We have the Battle of Culloden, the Battle of Stirling Bridge. These two were inspired on my recent trip overseas where I went to visit these battlefields. The rest, I did not get to the battlefields, unfortunately. The Battle of Marathon, the Battle of Gaugamela, the Battle of Alesia, the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Battle of Lepanto, and the Battle of Jena Orstedt. Those are the battles that are currently available on Premium, and they'll also be coming to free-to-air open access in 2024 on their own channel. And finally, coming to Enemies of Rome. This is a long list, but these will be coming as premium episodes to the On Rome podcast, and then again, free-to-air open access on their own channel. The Enemies of Rome topics will be Carthage, Hannibal, Mithridates, Parthia, Arminius, Germania, Vercingetorix, Gaul, Boudica, and Macedonia. Now, those are the ones that were pre-recorded, and as you can tell, listeners, we mix between nation-states, peoples, entities, groups, as well as individuals on the Enemies of Rome podcast to try and get an understanding of those who were fighting Rome. So as you can see, 2024 is going to be a big year for us, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you who are listening to this are interested in the Dead Prussian podcast, which has been our main focus for recording at the end of this year and the start of next year for that 2024 season, because we know that's where most of our listeners are, and we want to reward your loyalty by making sure we have all our ducks in a row for you first. And then On Rome will be also launching early in 2024, and those other two shows, Battles and Enemies of Rome, shortly after, maybe Q1 2024 or maybe Q2 2024. But thank you, listeners, for all your support so far on the show. It's been nearly a decade we've been doing this, and we really appreciate the fact that you spend time with us, and that is the most important thing you can spend. So whenever I give you grief on being a premium subscriber or not, just know that spending your time with us is one of the most valuable ways you can support us, and we really appreciate it, because time is a resource you cannot gain more of. But until next time, listeners, grab a book and crack on.
Follow the Dead Prussian podcast on Twitter at Dead Prussian Pod and Facebook at facebook.com/thedeadprussian. The Dead Prussian podcast is a Hollow Street Media production. It is hosted and produced by Mick Cook. The Dead Prussian podcast is copyright of Hollow Street Media.